At exactly 4:32 a.m. on November 1st, 2025, the skies over northern Ukraine erupted. 42 caliber cruise missiles and 18 Lancet drones worth more than $160 million rained down on Kharkiv, Chernihiv, and Sumy, home to more than 3.2 million civilians. Moscow called it Operation Winter Strike. In reality, it was a display of power, a show of force that plunged entire cities into darkness. The silence that followed from Kiev was not a sign of defeat. It was calculation. Ukraine launched Operation Spiral Gate, two modified stealth MiG-19, worth less than $12 million and cheaper than a single Panzer battery, pierced 600 kilometers of Russian airspace. Their primary target, Moscow. The capital was protected by 240 radar stations, two Panzer S-1 systems, an electronic warfare center, Krasuka 4, and a surveillance network of 76,000 cameras, Moscow's $9.4 billion defense shield. Could one of the most advanced defense systems on Earth protect its most sacred ground? Or was this only the beginning of something far greater? Let's find out. November 1st, 2025, 4:32 a.m., northern Ukraine. The sky blazed before dawn. At exactly 4:32 a.m., Russia launched Operation Winter Offensive, a coordinated strike involving 42 caliber cruise missiles and 18 Lancet suicide drones, with a total value exceeding $160 million. Their targets: the frozen cities of Kharkiv, Chernihiv, and Sumy, home to more than 3.2 million civilians. Chaos erupted, flooding Ukraine's radar screens. Alarms wailed across nearby bases as red blips poured in from the north. A storm of missiles heading straight toward population centers. Activate all defense systems, the commander ordered. 30 seconds later, Patriot and IRIS-TSLM batteries ignited the sky. 36 interceptor missiles streaked upward like lightning. 18 drones were destroyed mid-air, but 6 missiles broke through. In just 13 minutes, entire apartment blocks collapsed, factory roofs were torn apart, and Chernihiv's main maternity hospital took a direct hit. 38 people were killed, 127 wounded, including 19 newborns and 11 medical staff. A nurse sprinted down a burning corridor, clutching trembling infants as flames devoured everything behind her. Power failed across 5 provinces as 14 substations and 312 transformers were destroyed. 400,000 residents lost heating as temperatures plunged below -11 degrees Celsius. Ambulances worked relentlessly before sunrise. Firefighters fought the infernos with melting snow. At 4:47 a.m., a final missile struck an unmarked UAV factory near Sumy, Ukraine's next-generation drone production hub worth $93 million. The explosion leveled 12,000 square meters of infrastructure, scattering composite fuselage parts half a mile away. By morning, 9,200 people had been evacuated. Roads were clogged with frozen cars and the cries of children. Satellite imagery captured 112 fires still burning across the region. This was not a military operation. It was a message. Russia's winter retaliation campaign had struck the northern heart of Ukraine, less than 80 kilometers from NATO's eastern flank. And as the smoke drifted eastward, one truth became clear. Ukraine would strike back, not with fury, but with a precision colder than snow. At 5:20 a.m., the dust and smoke over Kharkiv still hung heavy when the order came down from below. In a hardened command bunker under Kiev, President Volodymyr Zelensky convened an urgent meeting with his top generals, intelligence officers, and drone engineers. Around them, live feeds flickered, destroyed hospitals, collapsed power grids, frozen streams of refugees moving west to makeshift shelters. The silence was broken by a single voice from the commander-in-chief, Oleksandr Syrsky. Initiate Operation Spiral Gate. This would be Ukraine's answer, precise, psychological, and brutal. The primary target, Moscow. The capital that hosts a nuclear research site, the F1 research reactor at the Kurchatov Institute, and the major power plants that feed the Moscow grid. A call was immediately placed to the commander at a subterranean airstrip near Vinnytsia. On the steel floor, 2 MiG-29s Fulcrum sat ready, heavily modified. Each jet carried a loadout of R-77s and KH-31s, the strike package worth nearly $48 million. These were no ordinary fighters. Over 19 months they had been rebuilt in secret workshops, fitted with low-visibility coatings, infrared suppressors, and digital radar stealth suites that cut detection probability by 87%. The mission was nearly suicidal: to penetrate more than 600 kilometers of airspace defended by 240 radar stations, 2 Panzer S-1 systems, and a surveillance network backed by 76,000 cameras and a Krasuka 4 electronic warfare unit. Moscow's defensive ring alone had an estimated budget exceeding $9.4 billion. Yet Kiev planned to breach it with 2 jets whose combined cost was under $12 million. As satellite feeds arrived, Kiev's analysts assessed the civilian toll from the recent Russian night strike at roughly $420 million in damages. Zelensky's response would cost a fraction of that, but it would strike 10 times deeper. Before takeoff, a mechanic painted a spiral glyph on each fuselage, a token of the mission. The pilots saluted in silence. The hangar lights dimmed. Ukraine's revenge had taken shape. Do you think Russia's air defenses can crush 2 MiG-29s? Or will this be the spark that ignites a new kind of war? November 2nd, 2025, 03:58 a.m. Russian airspace engines thundered through the murky night. 2 MiG-29 spiral variants, call signs Phantom 1 and Phantom 2, roared across the Russian border at Mach 1.7, skimming the radar horizon just 36 meters above the snow-lined treetops. Beneath them, 2,000 square miles of Russian farmland lay frozen in fog and silence. Above, 240 radar stations swept an empty sky and saw nothing. At 3:59 a.m., Ukraine's counterstrike began. Phantom 1 released a Lelika 100 UAV decoy, a $25,000 drone programmed to mimic the radar profile of a full-sized fighter. The bait worked instantly. 2 Panzer S-1 batteries, each valued at $15 million, locked on and launched a $1.9 million missile salvo. The sky erupted in lightning, and Russia's billion-dollar air defense web fell for the price of a family sedan. It would take 56 minutes before the system could fully reload. Seconds later, Phantom 2 broke through the confusion, switching from stealth to strike mode. In 2.4 seconds, its radar locked onto a Krasuka 4 jamming unit, the same one that had blinded Ukraine's defenses days earlier. That unit alone cost $12 million, but it never had a chance to fight back. A Koch-31P anti-radiation missile screamed through the snowstorm at Mach 3.5, hitting dead center. The explosion peaked at 1,200 degrees Celsius, vaporizing metal and snow alike. Within 5 minutes, 3 Russian EW hubs across Bryansk province fell silent, erasing nearly 20% of Moscow's radar coverage. Chaos followed. Radio nets crackled with overlapping voices. Operators shouted ghost readings as decoy signals multiplied. One controller reported 11 enemy aircraft, where only 2 existed. A Tor M2 battery, 28 miles east, fired back blindly, but its missiles missed by 27 meters, confused by frequency-hopping algorithms coded in Lviv 3 weeks before the mission. By 4:05 a.m., the sky belonged to Ukraine. Phantom 1 and Phantom 2 had breached all remaining defenses. In just 7 minutes, Russia had lost over $58 million in missiles, radars, and fuel, while Ukraine spent less than $200,000. The MiGs climbed to 10,000 meters, the faint orange glow of Moscow flickering on the horizon. Then came Kiev Command's cold transmission. Target corridor confirmed. Proceed to Phase 4. The trap had closed, and the heart of Russia now lay exposed beneath their wings. They thought the worst was over, but behind that radar blackout, something far deadlier was coming. Stay with me. The real battle for Moscow begins now. 4:07 a.m., over the skies of Moscow. From 10,000 meters above the frozen capital, 2 Ukrainian MiG-29 spiral fighters tore through the clouds like ghosts from another world. Below them lay Moscow, a city of 12.7 million people, asleep in the comfort of its own illusion of safety. In the cockpit, Phantom 1 locked its coordinates. A coded voice came through the encrypted line. Execute spiral pattern, weapons free. At 4:09 a.m., the first strike began. 3 R-77 air-to-surface missiles, each carrying 40 pounds of high explosive, plunged toward the city at Mach 3.2. They struck the luxury apartment towers along Kutuzovsky Prospect, home to Russia's ministers, oligarchs, and military elites. The shockwave shattered over 3,000 windows within a 3-mile radius. Flames climbed the facades, turning a 70-story glass tower into a column of molten light. The internal temperature surged past 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, approximately 980 degrees Celsius, igniting everything combustible. On the ground, Moscow's warning network collapsed. 240 radar stations reported ghost signals. The city's 76,000 surveillance cameras went offline in 8 seconds when the first substation exploded. Traffic lights blinked out. The entire western power grid of the capital lost electricity for 14 minutes, plunging 2 million residents into darkness. Then Phantom II dove through the smoke. At 4:11 a.m., it fired a salvo of 5 Kh-31 missiles toward the government complex in Philly district. One missile slammed into the Reserve Parliament building, collapsing 3 floors. Another hit the Kuntsevo power plant, igniting fuel stores worth $110 million and vaporizing 3,000 gallons of transformer oil in seconds. The blast wave cracked windows as far as the Moscow River embankment, and the echo rolled across the frozen city like thunder. Within 20 minutes, the Kremlin confirmed 12 dead, 41 severely injured, and 2,300 emergency calls flooding the hotlines. Highway overpasses jammed with abandoned cars as terrified civilians fled on foot. Some hid beneath buses, others clutched their children, staring at the sky glowing red above their city. And then, silence. Only the fading hum of 2 departing jets cutting through the clouds. A mission costing Ukraine less than $4 million had crippled over $620 million in Russian infrastructure and defense assets. At 4:22 a.m., Kiev broadcast its message to the world: Moscow is no longer untouchable. 6:30 a.m. to 12 p.m., Moscow, Kiev, Brussels. The sun rose over a city unrecognizable. Moscow, once the fortress of Russian power, was now a skyline of smoke. More than 18 fires still raged across the capital. The air reeked of burning plastic, scorched metal, and fear. Power grids were offline, metro lines halted, and mobile networks collapsed in a chain reaction that silenced 9.4 million residents. For nearly 2 hours, the world's largest metropolis moved backward a century. At 7:10 a.m., the Kremlin's emergency command system failed to reconnect with 8 major military bases around the city. Communication between fire brigades and police froze for 17 minutes. A mid-air scare unfolded when 2 civilian airliners received no instructions from ground control, one narrowly avoiding collision over Domodedovo airspace. Inside a bunker beneath Red Square, President Vladimir Putin faced his generals. Reports confirmed 18 dead, 103 injured, and over $1.2 billion in immediate structural losses. But independent analysis later revealed the true figure closer to $2.8 billion, including $620 million in military equipment destroyed. The room fell silent as he muttered, "This is war," before signing a retaliatory order that would never be executed. The command lines were still down. At 8:40 a.m., NATO's Crisis Response Council convened in Brussels. No condemnation of Ukraine came. The alliance merely expressed concern, while the United States quietly approved another $800 million package for long-range UAV production. Poland and the Baltic states authorized Kiev's aircraft to operate through their airspace for defensive measures. Then came Zelensky's televised address from the underground command center. There are no safe skies for those who bomb hospitals. Moscow is no longer beyond reach hours later. A leaked NATO intelligence brief circulated through Western media. A $1,800 drone exposed the vulnerability of a $500 billion defense doctrine. By noon, the fires in Moscow had dimmed, but the message burned across the globe. The age of massive armies was fading, replaced by innovation, precision, and willpower. You can build walls of steel, the report concluded, but history always finds a way to fly through the cracks. By nightfall, the fires over Moscow had turned to embers. What had begun as a blizzard of missiles over northern Ukraine ended as a lesson written in smoke over the Russian capital. The world had witnessed a turning point, not of armies, but of ideas. In less than 24 hours, 2 MiG-29s, worth less than a tenth of a single Russian S-400 battery, had crippled over $600 million in assets, silenced radar systems spanning 3 provinces, and exposed the fragility of an empire built on fear. For Ukraine, it was not just revenge. It was proof that innovation could outmatch intimidation. The figures were staggering. $420 million in Ukrainian losses avenged by a counterstrike costing under $4 million. The ratio defied logic and rewrote military textbooks overnight. Defense analysts called it the cheapest strategic humiliation in modern history. Across Europe, power brokers whispered about a new kind of warfare, one fought not in trenches, but in circuits, frequencies, and code. The Pentagon's own report circulated quietly through Brussels. Steel walls and nuclear shields can't defend against imagination. As the smoke cleared, Ukraine mourned its dead in candlelit streets while Moscow counted its broken glass. But in that fragile stillness, one truth echoed louder than the explosions that preceded it. The era of brute force had ended. In its place rose a new reality, where a $1,800 drone could cripple a billion-dollar defense, and courage could travel faster than sound. Because in the end, you can silence cities, destroy power grids, and bury truth beneath propaganda. But you can't bomb an idea whose time has come. If you found this analysis insightful and want to support more in-depth breakdowns like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And hit the bell icon so you never miss the next unfolding conflict.